episode starting off different, right? Can't you tell? It's still going to be very, very good. So I need you to stay. I need you to pay attention. I need you to get ready. So if this is your first time here, welcome. And for all my returning family, welcome back. You already know where you are. It's the industry safe space, your new safe space when it comes to life, the industry, our relationships with God, and everything in between. We are going to talk about it. I am your girl, Kai, your favorite certified trichologist, 20 plus year licensed cosmetologist, trusted silk press enthusiast, but I can't even say, trust me, I got locks because I don't have locks. Oh my God. Like, that is what this episode is about. The process of me combing out my locks, not just the process, the revelation and how I came to this decision. I'm going to give you tips on if you're considering combing out your locks, but the main character in this episode is obedience. When God speaks, we have to be obedient. And that's how I got here. Trust me, I did not want to comb my locks out, but here we are. So I need y'all to bear with me. This is my first episode recording alone. So it's going to be fun, but we're going to take our time. First things first, I'm going to talk about how did I come up to the decision? How did I finally decide that I was going to comb out my locks? I still can't believe I'm here. Like, I still have not come to a realization that I don't have my locks anymore. It took a while to get to this step, but I'm here. And it started off because I had an idea. I literally thought it. I hadn't told anyone. I thought to myself, you know what? I'm going to find my longest lock and I'm going to comb it out. I just was curious to see how long my hair was, right? Again, this is a thought. I had not shared it with anyone. So then I'm speaking with my spiritual sister, Trevette. Shout out to you. Love you. We're on the phone trying to kiki and laugh like we do. But God literally probably gave us about 8 to 9 minutes before he snatched her up. And so we also hadn't been talking. So she hadn't even been aware of what was going on or, again, the thought that I had to myself. So she says, I see you with your locks, but I also see you with your loose hair. And in that moment, I was just like, are you kidding me? And she said, I see you transitioning back. I see you going back to your loose hair. And I was like, I was in awe because, again, I hadn't told anyone. Like, it literally was just a thought, right? And she said that you're about to birth something. Something's coming, and you have to be the poster child for it. And to be the poster child for it, you need your loose hair. So after we got done talking, she gave me some more information or whatever. And I said, okay, God, well, all right. Because if you know me, I love my locks. I love my loose hair, but I loved whatever, my locks. They were my babies, right? And so I'm like, God, if we are really going to do this, I need confirmation. And y'all know me. I need confirmation for the confirmation and a confirming confirmation for that confirmation. I need a text, an email, and a blimpy in the air, right? So fast forward after that conversation, I said, okay, God, we're like 50-50 in this. I'm considering it, but I'm still not sure because obedience isn't always easy, right? So I had a client that came. It was her first time booking with me. She booked the appointment 3 weeks before she actually came. It was a Saturday morning. I'll never forget. I walked in the salon and I looked in the mirror. I said, God, I love my locks. Like, I don't, and I know to some people it's just like, oh, it's just hair. No, my hair is a part of my journey and my testimony, not only just in business, but my spirituality, everything. It's all connected, right? So I looked in the mirror. I'm like, God, if I'm really finna comb out my locks, I need a sign, right? And so if anybody know me, I had a little ponytail too, baby. My ponytail was shaking. I was like, okay, girl. So it had just got past my bra strap. I'm like, God, what are we doing? So I said that to myself as I'm looking in the mirror on a Saturday morning. It was about 10:30. The client comes in. She was probably my third client. Mid-afternoon. She comes, sits. We get to the shampoo bowl. I said, oh my God, your hair is so pretty. Did you just take down a sew-in or some braids? The woman of God said, I just combed out my locks. I said, are you kidding? The way I pushed her, she probably think I'm crazy. And if you're watching this, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But when I tell y'all I shoved her, I said, you got to be lying. And so she was like, yeah, I made the appointment 3 weeks ago because I wanted to set a deadline for when I needed to be done. So put a pin there. We're going to talk about God each step of the way. That shows you how God is into everything. I told him I needed a confirmation at 10:30 in the morning, yet he had her book the appointment 3 weeks ago because he knows me. He knows us. So he knew that I was going to need this, and he had put that in place already, right? That's crazy. So she shows me a picture of her locks. When I tell you they were the same length as mine, they were the same density, like everything about them, I just was like, you're kidding me. And so once I was done, conditioned her up, trimmed her up, silked baby girl out, and I was like, okay, God, okay. I'm a little bit past 50. We're probably like 60-40 that I'm going to do it. So that was good. So then fast forward like a week or two after that, a young lady texts me. She says, hey, Kai, I'm on your site, and I'm not quite sure what I should book. I'm interested in the consultation, but I'm not really sure. And so I was like, is it a certain style you're interested in or anything? And she was like, well, I just combed my locks out, and I have no idea what to do. I said, God, okay, you can stop yelling at me. I know I needed a confirmation for the confirmation, but you don't have to keep yelling at me. And so I was just like, this is crazy. Now, I've been doing hair for over 20 years, and it's not that haven't had clients that have combed their locks out, but never, I was the first service after their locks, never. Most times they probably, it was a year, 6 months or something like that. So she says, it's the worst decision I ever made. I said, all right now, God, you done just told me to do this. This ain't confirming now. I'm finna go back to 50%. And so she says, I said, so why do you say that? She said, well, because my hair was thin, and so I lost a lot of hair. She said, however, 2 of my friends combed their locks out, and they had very thick, curly hair, and they kept a lot of their hair. And I was like, okay, God, I see. You better clear it up. I see what you did there. And so I was just like, all right, we're doing this. We're going to do this. I think I was probably at like 75%. And I was like, okay, God, if we're going to do this, this is what we're going to do. And then I said, I'm probably going to do it Black Friday. This is still if I'm going to do it because I'm not 100% committed yet. I still haven't gave him a yes, hard-headed self. I said, so I'm going to do it Black Friday because I have Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Because if God's telling me to do this, I know for a fact I'm finna do this. This finna be quick. It's a God thing, right? So another client, so random. Again, when I tell you God is so faithful and true, and the way he will speak to you exactly where you are, don't let nobody tell you you have to change anything. Random client, I think it might have been her first or second time. We're leaving the shampoo bowl. We go to the chair. Me and my esthetician that works in the salon with me, we're talking. And so we're having a faith talk, and we're talking about my locks and different things like that. And so the lady says, I wasn't going to say anything, but since y'all talking, I feel like I have to say something. I was like, what? I'm thinking like, this weird. She was like, when you walked me to your chair and I was walking behind you, I literally thought to myself, I wonder how her locks will look combed out. I said, God, okay, we're here. I'm doing it. Stop yelling at me. Stop fussing at me. I'm going to do it. Yes. Okay. So I agreed, told God, okay, we're going to do this. I think I told a couple of my close friends. I only told like 2. I didn't tell everybody because I wanted to shock, especially the ones that love my loose hair. I was like, I want to shock them. I don't even want them to know the process, right? So I said, I'm going to do it Black Friday. I'm going to do it Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. We're going to be done. Black Friday rolls around, and it took me like 8 hours that day because I end up doing it over a period of like four or 5 days. So the first day, because I had 90 locks, let's start there. I had 90 locks, and I started with the instant lock crochet method. So that means your hair is actually crocheted and the lock is created, right? So I had 90 locks. And the first day, it was taking me like 25 to 30 minutes. Excuse me. It was taking me 25 to 30 minutes a lock. And I did 8 hours. I said, God, this ain't what you told me. This taking a lot longer than I thought, right? Because before I even started, I had went in my warehouse to pray. So we finna put a pin there too. I go to pray. I was speaking to one of my friends, Ish, and she said, this finna be an emotional weekend. I said, okay, maybe. I mean, I didn't think it was gonna be real deep. Baby, I went to praying just to, for God to give me clarity and discernment as I'm doing this thing. And I started crying. I said, now, wait a minute. I literally was sitting there crying. I'm like, well, this is how I know it's obedience, because I literally did not want to do it. And if anybody know me, my mind said I was going to have my locks until I turned 50. I was going to cut my hair short. I was going to find me a 20-some-year-old barber. I was going to tip him for like 10 or 20 years. So then when I couldn't travel, because I tipped him so good for 20 years, he was going to come to my house and that was going to be it, right? I had the whole story planned out. God said, and ain't. So I come over and I started. The first day, like I said, it took me 8 hours. I said, okay, God, tomorrow I got stuff to do, okay? We not going to be taking all day. The next day, I did 4 hours. Now this day, I was knocking them out 11 minutes, 15 minutes, 18 minutes. I said, okay, God, this is what I'm talking about. But of course, your girl had somewhere to go, out twirling and things. So I went to go see one of my friends who just relocated back. And I did the back so that way I could pull it back in a ponytail. So it just looked like I needed a retwist really bad, right? So then the third day, I did another 4 hours. But in amongst those 3 days, now this is probably over a week and a half span that I'm on day 3. And so it's the holiday time, so I'm watching some of my favorites: Home Alone, Lost in New York, The Grinch, Devil Wears Prada. That's my fave. And I'm crying out of nowhere. Just start god dang on crying. And I'm going to tell you the revelation behind the crying in a minute. But I'm just like, what is this? Like, I'm not even watching emotional movies. Like, these are my go-tos. And I literally just out of nowhere crying. Even as I'm listening to certain songs, I got my little throwback R&B list playing. Anita Baker, my Frankie Beverly and Mays, Tina Marie, all that type of stuff. God instantly, gospel music. So I turn on gospel music. As I'm sitting there listening to gospel music, and instantly I hear intercession. So as I'm taking my hair down, now I'm praying. I'm talking to God, I'm praying. I'm talking to God, I'm praying. I'm listening to gospel music, I'm going back and forth. And so I was just like, all right, we're still not done, but we're here. Now, mind you, I've reached out to like 3 of my not close, but 3 people that are in the beauty industry that I'm very close with. And I had asked each one of them if they could help me at different points. Now, they all agreed, but when it came time to actually come, none of them were available. I wasn't disappointed because I knew that was God saying, this is something you have to do by yourself. Like, you trying to include people. This is a process that I need you to go through by yourself. And so I got to the last day, which I think was about 8 days. I did it to like 2:30 because I was doing sections so that way I could still go outside. So once I was finally done, I took a deep breath. But in the midst of it, I reached back out to my spiritual sister, Trevette, and we were on the phone talking. And it was so interesting because she said, you were crying because you were grieving the death of who that person is that was attached to those locks. She said, you're actually mourning who you were, some of the people attached to it, some of the things attached to it. And she said, you're literally grieving. She said, so that's why, and it makes sense because I had been emotional even before I made the decision. And she says, you're actually grieving. And she said, a lot of people talk about the butterfly. We often talk about the butterfly when we've arrived. Look at me now, but nobody really talks about that cocoon phase, like when you in the dark, alone, and God got you to himself. Like that's the phase that not many people talk about. And so she said, you're crying. And my friend finna laugh because she told me I was gonna cry, but I'm not. So she said, so it's okay. She said, because you're literally, someone's dying. Like for you to become who you are now, you have to grieve her. And it's so crazy because it made sense that it took so long because God said, I could have done it quick, but it had to be a process because you're grieving. And that's why on day 2, he let me do something quickly just to show me it ain't that you can't do it in 4 days. You just can't do it in 4 days. Like you actually have to grieve her. You have to go through this process because the first 2 years from when I started my locks, I was going through a lot. I was transitioning. I was going through a separation. I was going through a divorce. Some of my friendships were being shaken up. I was shifting in between shops. So it's a lot of things that were in the first 2 years of my locks that I didn't really realize. And so that's why God said cutting them would have been too easy. That's the easy way. You have to comb them out. You have to actually shed that. You have to actually release that dead weight. You're actually going through a process. It's a spiritual thing. It looks like you're just combing out your locks, but you're literally combing things. You're removing things. You know how like when a dog got fleas or people got lice in their hair and they take that comb and it rakes things out. He was like, as you're combing your hair out. Because when I tell you this is nobody but God, if y'all knew how much hair I really still have on my head, I'm going to actually put some videos and clips at the end of the episode for you to actually see the process and the tools and things I used as well. But he literally preserved my hair. Like, that's also how I knew it was God. Like, it's almost as if I had knotless braids for 4 years. Like, it was just crazy how much hair I retained from combing my hair out. And so going back to talking to my spiritual sister, and she said, once you get through this process, it's a beautiful butterfly on the other end. And it's crazy because we often think when God removes people, situations, places, thought processes, we always think it's something negative. We always think that they were bad or they were horrible. We have such negative connotation with endings. But what I've learned is sometimes people just can't go. And it's not always that it's wrong or they're wrong. They're just not right. Like, I heard my pastor say that. He said, it's not that it's wrong. It's just not right. And I had to sit on that like, wow. Because if you really think about it, you could be in God's perfect will or you could be in his permissive will. And when you sit, because he'll allow some things to happen, he'll allow you to hold on to certain people. But which one do you want? You know what I'm saying? And so, combed it out. I'm here now. And I still don't really know how I feel because as I'm recording this, I'm probably about 3 or 4 days off of my locks being combed out. And so I'm still trying to gather the lightness that I feel, the release that I feel, And just knowing that I was obedient. It was a little delayed. We get it confused. Delayed obedience is still a form of disobedience, but nonetheless, I was obedient. And I'm learning that when God speaks, we should move. And so that's for you. Um, he said to do it. You're watching this now, and when you're done, you should be picking up the phone. Yep, call them. You should be filling out that application. You should be submitting your letter of resignation. You should be leaving. You should be starting. It's a lot of things that you hear God and He's told you to do something, and you're going back and forth. So, as we are approaching the closing of 2024, we want to go into 2025 being obedient. And that means releasing people, places, and things that are too heavy. People, places, and things that are no longer our assignment. And oftentimes, they shouldn't have been our assignment, or we kept them too long. And so, as you cross over, we're going to be obedient. We all going to be obedient. I'm going to hold you accountable. Y'all going to hold me accountable, because we don't need to no longer be in situations or relationships anywhere that requires us to be or requires us to perform mental gymnastics. I always say that. Right now in this season, I don't have the capacity to entertain or deal with uncertainty. Now, seasons change. There may come a time when God allows me to deal with the foolishness and people and their craziness. But right now in this season, the people around me, I need 10 toes down, certain, without any question. Like, I need to know that I know that you're for me right now in this season. I don't have time for any wavering, because me being obedient, I know, is attached to a lot of other great things. So if I'm being obedient, I need to make sure the people around me are being obedient, right? And so we just take a moment, breathe, and just realize God is in control at the end of the day. Like, from the depths of my heart, I know that He is in control. Even when I'm not sure, and I always try to tell people this, even when I'm uncertain, He's in control. And He has yet to disappoint me or let me down. And so I think that's why this obedience in this season is very important. That's literally the purpose of this episode, is to stress what obedience look like. Again, to some, it may just look like, oh, she combed out her locks. No, this was an obedience thing. Like, this was literally God said, do it, and do it suddenly. Like, I literally, from the time I got the prophetic word to when I actually did it, was probably like 2 months. And now that I'm thinking about it, that probably was too long. But it all worked out, because God said, when I was done combing them out, I was 1 day away from my 4-year lockversary. And He said, I need the feelings to be fresh. So also, had I been done earlier, I'd have been trying to remember how I felt. But since it's so new, I can speak from it, because it just happened. So take heed, listen to what I'm saying. I know it may be hard. Most things that are uncomfortable is when God's telling you to do something. Nothing comes from comfort zones. We know that. You have to be stretched. You have to go in unfamiliar territory. You have to be made uncomfortable. Again, think about the caterpillar and a butterfly. Vision right now what a caterpillar looks like. And then think about it becoming a butterfly. Where do wings come from? Where all that, I'm not, I don't know technically, but just from a spiritual aspect. Think about wings coming from what looked like a worm. That's a painful thing. Think about plants. When you got to grow, when you have to grow stuff, the seed, it goes in the ground, in the dark, in the cold, in the water, but something beautiful comes. Like all of that speaks to that transitioning and what obedience, when you obey, it starts off uncomfortable. It may start off scary. It may start off like you're alone. But in the end, it's worth it. Y'all know the scripture would say, he will restore unto you. Baby, when I tell you this have been restored, I'm telling y'all, make sure that you're following me on Instagram, because I am going to document this journey of me and my loose hair. Underscore the Kai Experience underscore. Make sure you are following me, because it's about to get real. And I know some of you are probably considering combing out your locks or getting rid of your locks. You may even be considering starting your locks. But before I even give you tips on that, I want you first to make sure it's a God thing, because I can give you all the advice and all the instructions. But if it's not a God thing, the same grace won't be extended. Because one thing I know about instructions from God, grace and mercy is included. So when God gives you instructions, grace and mercy comes along with it. Shout out to Q, grace and mercy. But yeah, so usually when God tells you to do a thing, he bestows upon you the grace and mercy needed to complete it. So you could take tips, and that's often why, thank you, Holy Spirit. That's often why sometimes you may take a class or you may take instructions from somebody and you wondering why it's not working for you the way it's working for them. Because God ain't tell you to do that. So it's difficult, and that grace ain't on you like it was on them to do it. So the reason why I was able to complete taking my locks down, the reason why I still have a lot of hair, the reason why you could barely tell I had locks for 4 years is because God's grace was on me as I was doing this, because it was something he instructed me to do. But in reference to taking your locks out, if you're considering it, be patient. Be very, very patient. I'm going to do a very detailed video on Instagram, but the tips I can give you right now is, I know I did a lot of research where they said only wet one lock at a time, but I would speak against that. Find a section. So if you determine like today, I'm going to take out 20, take that section, drench it in water. Like I literally did sections. So the first section, I saturated in water, because again, your lock is nothing but dead hair, dirt, and all that stuff build up. So the water is softening it. And so as it was doing that, you have 2 bottles. You're going to have a water bottle that has 90% water, 10% conditioner. Then you have another bottle that's going to be about 80% conditioner and 20% water. And you want to make sure the conditioner that you're using is a strengthening, repair, some type of restoration, because again, what you're doing to your hair could be very damaging. And so after you wet the section, the key is to mist that section with the bottle that has 90% water, 10% conditioner. And you're doing that because if you know anything about conditioner, it's a natural detangler. It's a natural softener. So you want to put that on the whole section. It's going to soften while you're working on each individual lock. So as you take each individual lock, that's when you're going to use the bottle that has the 80% conditioner and the 20% water, because the cream, as you spray it on that individual lock, is going to allow you to pull it apart. And so I know people say combing out, but you're really picking. You're literally picking the hair loose. That's what you're doing with the comb. And don't go get no fancy comb, because I did my research on that too. And they said go get a metal comb, because you need a comb that, now you do need a quality comb that's not going to break. So I just got a carbon, 2 carbon combs that were heat resistant. So they were a little strong, but that was it. And then you're going to pick and make sure you're detangling as you're combing. Continue to mist. You have to make sure the lock that you're working on is completely saturated. That's the key. You should be able to squeeze it, and it should be leaking liquid. Like that's how it needs to work. And then again, take your time. Make sure when you're done, do a good treatment. Yeah, and refrain from heat for a while. So, like I said, I'm fresh off of not having my locks. I can't believe that. God, I really ain't got my locks. I'm sorry. So don't rush into a heat style. So I'm probably gonna wait a few weeks before I heat style it, probably for New Year's. By the time this airs, New Year's will probably be like in a week or so. So stay tuned for that. Um, yeah. So I hope this episode was good for you all. This was exciting for me. My first episode alone. We did it. Yay. Make sure you are following. Make sure you like. Make sure you share. And make sure you subscribe to the Industry Safe Space. I am your girl, Kai. And this is the season finale. Oh my God. Make sure you go back and check our other, I think we had 12 episodes. This is the season finale. And I'll see you all in 2025. So, happy holidays. Happy New Year. Y'all be blessed.